When you hear the name Mercedes-Benz, you immediately picture elite luxury and engineering precision. That gleaming hood ornament represents an enterprise worth roughly $80 billion today, making it one of the most successful automakers on the planet. But back in the mid-19th century, the world ran on steam trains and horses. At the time, building a personal motorized carriage was considered heretical and logistically out of reach for a lone engineer. The person who eventually solved that problem started at the bottom. Carl Benz was an impoverished orphan from Mühlberg, a boy whose father died when he was 2, and who frequently went to bed with an empty stomach. Starting with zero financial leverage or societal connections makes the scale of the modern Mercedes-Benz empire a massive historical anomaly. To understand how he bridged that gap, we have to look at the specific failures he navigated. Thanks to his mother pushing him through school, Carl showed an early brilliance in mechanics. By his late teens, studying under a university mentor, he realized that massive heavy steam engines were a dead end for personal transport. His first attempt to solve this took the form of a mechanical workshop in 1871, but he partnered with an unreliable mechanic who actively sabotaged the business, resulting in local authorities impounding all their tools, pushing Carl to the brink of financial ruin. The venture only survived because of a woman named Bertha Ringer. She recognized Carl's talent and used her own dowry to buy out the partner entirely, placing her and Carl in total control of the struggling iron foundry. This schematic shows what Carl was building, a gasoline 2-stroke engine. He spent years inventing components, patenting the spark plug, carburetor, clutch, and gearshift, finally firing the engine in 1879. Unlike a bulky steam boiler, this internal combustion design solved the weight-to-power ratio. It packed enough energy into a small frame to make a carriage move. Yet, as production costs rose, banks forced Carl to incorporate. His new investors had no interest in his engineering vision and systematically ignored his ideas, eventually stripping him down to a mere 5% share before he walked away from his own company in 1883. Carl's refusal to compromise his engineering standards forced him back to square one. He learned early on that having a brilliant vision means little if you hand over the control required to execute it. By 1885, he finally built the Benz patent motorwagen. It was a 3-wheeled vehicle running on a 4-stroke motor. But when he drove it in public, critics were terrified. People thought the machine would explode in the streets, and some labeled him the devil driving an infernal carriage. The invention was an immediate commercial failure. The machine was loud, needed a mechanic on standby, cost a fortune, and maxed out at 7 miles per hour. A horse was still faster and far more reliable. Realizing the company would fail without a shift in public perception, Bertha Benz took matters into her own hands. Early one morning in 1888, without telling Carl or the police, she packed up her 2 sons and took her husband's motor wagon for a drive. This map tracks the route she took. She embarked on a 66-mile journey from Mannheim to Pforzheim over rough, stony wagon roads. When the car broke down, she performed mechanical repairs on the fly, and when it ran out of gas, she stopped at a local pharmacy to buy solvent to keep the engine running. Completing that 12-hour trip achieved exactly what she intended. Bertha's stunt proved that building a new type of engine was only half the battle. The technology had to be forced into the public eye to avoid being forgotten. Just as Benz started finding commercial footing, a brutal rivalry emerged. Gottlieb Daimler ran a competing firm nearby, and unlike Carl, he possessed deep pockets and elite marketing connections. Daimler and his chief engineer, Wilhelm Maybach, focused on building faster, racing-style vehicles to appeal to the wealthy elite. In 1901, they debuted a 35-horsepower model named after a client's daughter, Mercedes. Carl despised this direction. He preferred slow, careful driving and was horrified by the noise of street racing. When his own partners secretly hired designers to build a faster model to compete with Daimler, an angry Carl stepped away from the company's daily operations once again. Both companies battled for supremacy until the outbreak of the First World War. In the aftermath, a devastated German economy plunged both automakers into extreme financial distress. To avoid bankruptcy, the two bitter rivals merged in 1926. Carl Benz passed away in 1929, living just long enough to witness a painful historical irony. His engineering dream was saved from ruin only by merging with the commercialized, racing-obsessed competitor he couldn't stand. Following Karl's death, the newly formed Daimler-Benz entered its darkest chapter. As Adolf Hitler rose to power in the 1930s, the regime took a massive interest in the automotive industry. Hitler heavily subsidized their racing programs to showcase German technology to the world. The Mercedes-Benz 770 quickly became the highly visible, preferred transport for high-ranking Nazi officials. By 1942, the company completely ceased civilian passenger car production. All factory resources were directed toward the war effort, manufacturing aircraft engines, submarine components, and military trucks for the Nazi military. To meet skyrocketing military demands while the German workforce was fighting on the front lines, Daimler-Benz resorted to horrific measures. By 1944, nearly half of their 63,000 employees were forced laborers, including prisoners of war and concentration camp detainees, held under inhumane conditions. The pursuit of corporate survival at any cost corrupted Karl's original intent. The invention meant to free people from the limitations of horses had been converted into an engine of war and complicity. When the war ended in 1945, Daimler-Benz was left in total ruin. The Potsdam Agreement stripped the company of all its foreign assets, and their domestic workforce was left standing in the rubble of severely bombed factories. Surviving the aftermath required an agonizing restructuring. Management underwent denazification, and the entire operation had to start over by building basic ambulances and police delivery vans. Yet the company clawed its way back. By the 1950s, Mercedes-Benz returned to profitability and made a dominant comeback on the international racing circuit, reclaiming its global status. The endurance of Mercedes-Benz demonstrates a brutal truth about innovation. Ideas outlive their creators. Karl Benz's original vision was so powerful that it survived his own business failures, his rivals, and even the darkest chapters of human history to set the technical pace for global transportation.